RailUp, the future mobility podcast with innovators and leaders of the ecosystem. Presented by Sebastian Sperker.
My first guest today is Mario Mikuschek, founder and co-lead of Accenture's Railway Center of Excellence. Together, we will discuss major trends shaping the rail industry and to explore the current state of ETCS. We will also tackle the question of why ETCS rollout is progressing much faster outside Europe. And to deepen this perspective, we have invited Mario's colleague Abdallah live from Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, who will share insights into the rail ecosystem in the Middle East. He will talk about the use of ETCS there and highlighting other exciting innovations happening right now. Get ready for an extended and fascinating look into the global rail landscape. Welcome, Mario, to this session of the RailUp Podcast. And let's start with the question, are you a leader or an innovator?
Yeah, hi Sebastian, and many thanks for having us. It's a pleasure being with you and talk about the rail industry. To your question, am I an innovator or a leader? I think both roles need to be in one person at home. As a leader, you need to have follower on the one hand, and to get follower, I think you need to have a relevant content, and relevant content comes from innovation, right? So that's why I believe both an innovator and a leader must be deeply embedded in a person or in the whole system. So that's why I would say it's more like both in service of a system that's complex, yeah.
Let's start today with our topic. So we're diving into innovation in the railway sector, into consulting, with a special focus on ETCS, the European Train Control System. And while it's often seen as a European initiative, what many might not know is that ETCS has already been adapted well beyond Europe. In countries like India, Australia, the Middle East, Taiwan, Israel, and even more in planning like Brazil or Egypt. And that raises an interesting question. Why are we in Europe still debating and discussing ETCS in such a diverse and sometimes hesitant way, while other countries are actively investing in it, and that's without any regulatory pressure from the European Union? And to explore this question, we will ask Mario to share his insights, and later we will be also joined by a colleague, Abdallah, from the Middle East, who will give us the first-hand perspective on how ETCS is being rolled out in this region. But so let's start, Mario. Let's start with you. Could you tell us a bit more about the department you lead?
Yeah, so let's say we as Accenture has established a Railway Center of Excellence in the last months and in the last years to interrupt and to disrupt the whole rail industry, right? And my role in Accenture is, on the one hand, I'm leading the Railway Center of Excellence, and on the other hand, I'm helping our clients to get real problems fixed. Yeah. So I'm still a project leader. I'm still working together with my clients or with my partners to overcome daily challenges, whether it's ETCS related, whether it's asset management related or engineering related. So there are a couple of things I'm doing in Accenture, and my pleasure is, especially here, to represent the Railway Center of Excellence, which is rolled out on an EMEA basis, so across Europe and even across the Middle East.
Can you just describe who you are main clients, and then can you just give us some real world examples of how your solutions are being applied in the field?
I mean, I cannot say who are our clients. Yeah.
Big railway undertakings, for example.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I can talk about a couple of things. Yeah. I mean, we currently serve, especially here in Europe, the major original equipment manufacturers. We work together with operators, so the railway undertakings. We collaborate with the rail infrastructure managers as well as with some authorities or even the tier one supplier of the original equipment manufacturer. So having said that, so the portfolio of topics is quite broad, and even the clients we serve are, let's say, connected around the rail industry. but not all of them are an operator. So we even group the OEMs under that umbrella as well.
ETCS is playing a pivotal role in innovation. And how would you, Mario, describe the current status of its implementation across Europe?
The ETCS implementation in Europe is, let's say, progressing. But is
Okay.
but is it fast enough? No, that's for sure. Yeah, I mean, if we look like countries, Switzerland, Denmark, the Netherlands, etc., they are leading with near complete rollouts of ETCS. Yeah, and others are focusing on the core corridors. Yeah, I think the challenges we have here currently, especially if you look at Germany or even some other countries, that we have high retrofitting costs of existing rolling stock vehicles. We need to have a coordination across legacy systems. We do have locomotives which are from a previous century, which are still on the tracks, right? And on the other hand, we have newer locomotives which need to be retrofitted as well. So having said that, I think across much of the Europe, ETCS implementation is still a complex and steady process to get there, and even to align all the technical standards between the infrastructure managers, between the authorities, between the railway undertakings. And this across Europe needs some time from my point of view. But still, I truly believe, that the direction in which we are going from an ETCS perspective is absolutely right. ETCS needs to become the backbone of an unified and a future-ready European rail system, right? So that's why I think we need to progress.
Yeah, but I mean, this raises like an interesting question. Like, if we speak for one moment about the retrofit. So retrofit is basically really, as you said already, to equip, for example, older locomotives with their onboard units of ETCS. And there, I can imagine it's always like a business case, because like an onboard unit costs between, or the retrofit between 300 and 700,000 euro per unit, which is quite a heavy investment.
The average, it's between 300 and 700 a year. That's absolutely right. And I think where we need to focus is on the first of class retrofits, where the certification comes from, which takes quite long nowadays to get there, as the older locomotives are, let's say, more challenging compared to the newer ones to retrofit, and to decrease those costs. And when it comes to a business case, I think it's important to group specific loco types under one umbrella to get the certification much sooner compared to it is nowadays. And another topic is to get the certification or the homologation of a locomotive type with the most complex technical environment. And if we will get a certificate of such a locomotive, to narrow it down for other locomotive types, which are probably not that complex, could be easier and could be faster to get the first of class certificate. And then the classical rollout, it's about speed.
And what about equipping diesel engines with ETCS? A big part of today's diesel engine fleet in Europe is already at the end of the life cycle, and due to the green targets, investment in new diesel engines are very rare. Hence, just a few numbers of diesel engines in Europe are equipped with ETCS onboard units. But we need these engines to ensure the shunting and the last mile services. So what is your experience? Will be all diesel engines get an upgrade?
I think it's important to retrofit those diesel engines as well to ETCS, especially when it comes to the last mile, for instance, or when it comes to cross-border operation, and to get a seamless connection, ETCS connection between different countries. It doesn't matter with this, whether it's a diesel engine or it's an electro.
But you're really calculating also retrofits for in cargo for last mile diesel engines.
I think it's important to calculate such a case as well for the cargo, for the last mile, to serve for the single wagon operation as well for ETCS, yes.
But you have already customer asking you that.
We work closely with a couple of cargo operators and with long distance, and if we talk about diesel locomotives, if we look at the regional trains as well, there are some diesel locomotives as well operating. So this is still in an ongoing discussion how many locomotive types needs to be equipped with ETCS. Yeah.
You already stated it previously, there is a big challenge of the different implementation speed of ETCS between the countries, and that leads actually to the opposite of the ETCS, a previous goal. Instead of seamless operations between the countries, it's getting sometimes even more difficult, especially for interoperable usage of the locos. And that has probably a negative impact on various business cases, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I think therefore it highly makes sense to focus on the main corridors, or starting with the main corridors, and to focus on those locomotives who are serving those corridors. Yeah, but this is still a big issue. For example, since this year, I think the Czech Republic is ETCS mandatory, and Belgium, I think, or the Netherlands as well. So this makes it the pressure is much higher to equip the existing fleet here in Germany or in Austria very soon. Yeah.
But there is also some good example where ETCS is already implemented outside from Europe, and therefore we invited your colleague Abdallah live from Riyadh in Saudi Arabia to give us first-hand insights from the Middle East. Could you give us a short overview about the railway sector in the Middle East with a focus on Saudi Arabia?
Absolutely. First of all, thank you, Sebastian, for having me, of course, on this podcast. So, yes, the Middle East is a kind of a region in ultimate change. You might almost say that most of the countries are going through national transformational programs. Like in Saudi Arabia is the Vision 2030, have similar programs going in the UAE. This means generally reinvention of industries, including the railway industry. So specifically, I'll be focusing mainly on Saudi Arabia. UAE has also with Etihad Rail a very nice kind of national operator, but Saudi Railways is by far the biggest because of the country size, obviously, which is a kind of the size of almost Western Europe. And Saudi Railways is taking the lead in that in terms of, let's say, the footprint of the railway tracks. They have mainly three main rail networks. One is the North Railways, before it was called the North and South Railway, which is connecting Riyadh to almost to the Jordanian border, which is almost 2,700 kilometers long. Then they do have also historically the first one between Al Khobar, which is close to Bahrain, and Riyadh, the capital city, which is called the East Train Network. Another, 1,700 kilometers as well. Of course, there are all side tracks, but I'm talking mainly the main lines. And then one which is highly, let's say, active due to the pilgrimage in I shouldn't say the south. It's called the Al Haramain line, which is between the holy cities of Medina and Mecca, which, as you can imagine, every year many millions of pilgrims traveling on that train to travel between the two holy cities. So from a kind of network, they do have the longest tracks. Definitely the North Railway is by far the longest rail network, which is operating in ETCS level 2, I should say. So it gives you kind of perspective.
Before we dive into the ETCS topic, can you also give us is there do you count a kind of a modal split? So what is the role of cargo and what is the role of passenger in Saudi Arabia?
Within in Saudi Arabia, they do have a lot of mineral transport because they do have a lot of mining. The mining business is quite of a considerable, let's say, industry. So they're moving a lot of cargo and freight, like raw materials from the ports to the capital city, Riyadh, from let's say Al Khobar, which is, as I mentioned, close to Bahrain, the ports. Now they're also, maybe just to highlight, they're embarking on a 10 years journey to build another line connecting the Jeddah port, which is close to the holy city of Mecca, all the way to Riyadh, which is another 1,000 kilometers. So this will be mainly, freight. Initially started off with freight, but they're moving more and more into passenger. Both tracks, north and east track, are both passengers rail tracks at the moment.
Great, and basically already teased it about ETCS. As like you said, like it's already like ETCS level 2. Is there any reason why Saudi Arabia has decided to go for ETCS level 2?
Yes, absolutely. I think, here in the region, and this is often true in many industries, they have this kind of greenfield approach. Although I should say for Saudi Arabia, there is some legacy, of course. They have been operating mainly the freight network for more than 40 to 50 years. But definitely on ETCS, the choice on ETCS, there are different reasons. Of course, it's an international standard, which is being recognized globally. So for them to jump on that wagon, if I may say, is an obvious one. Also from a supply side, you can see many suppliers, many vendors that are operating in that ecosystem. So that helps a lot as well, of course, from making sure that the supply side is secured and it's also long-term, that you're not vendor locked in. You can work with several vendors at a time and you can switch if needed. The core reason, of course, is due to the enhanced safety and automation possibilities that ETCS provides. Definitely when it comes to real-time monitoring and automatic speed regulation. And this, of course, also leads to reduced risk of human error, which, of course, is a very important one. I think also highlighting the harsh environments that Saudi Arabia, as I mentioned, it's almost the size of Western Europe. You have deserts, you have mountains. Not a lot of people know that, but you do have snow in some parts of Saudi Arabia. It's not only a desert. In that sense, I think also having ETCS level 2 in this case, there is a kind of reduced reliance on physical signaling, right? Equipment, which kind of reduces maintenance challenges. High temperatures, extreme high temperatures, 60 plus degrees, all the way to the minus sub-zero. So this overall is also improvement of the reliability of the rail system. And again, I think it's very important to highlight that this is maybe also broader to the regional aspect of the rail industry here in the Middle East, is that their ultimate aim, and there is already a political decision more than a decade ago, is to connect, like in Europe, all the countries, and they call it the GCC railways. These are, 6 countries, member states of what they call the GCC.
Who is like the member of the GCC? It's like Saudi Arabia, the Emirates?
Yes, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Kuwait. So they're all kind of responsible, Oman, they're all responsible for their portion of, let's say, in-country rail, which they're all developing at a very fast speed. Just to give you another sense, UAE is launching their passenger service by the end of the year. Their track is fully constructed. So they're really at the infancy, but they can do things from a kind of greenfield perspective. And this is why they're adopting also ETCS and level 2. And the granularity, the plan, of course, as part of the vision of the countries, is to grow towards level 3. Why not?
Is the digital automatic coupling a topic in Saudi Arabia?
Well, at the moment, of course, this is, they have it on the radar. They're seeing, let's say, the pilots across Europe, obviously at this moment in time, they don't have any active implementation, let's say, but they're definitely looking at innovations, again, because they can kind of look at it from a greenfield perspective. They can kind of work towards the best of the best in the industry. and develop their rail infrastructure accordingly. So at the moment, no DAC implemented, but definitely on their radar, and they're following up on the different pilots in Europe.
And last question, like what I'm personally interested, what about the current status of NEOM?
Yeah, NEOM is part of the vision, is one of the anchor mega project, but there are many more. Just to give you a view, there are like, a lot of mega projects, and NEOM is one of them, which indeed they are already quite advanced. As you can imagine, the size of I believe it is the size of Belgium, or even more, in the corner between Jordan, Egypt, and Saudi. And there, obviously, the land is so massive, the development ambition is so big that things take time. Of course, it will not be there fully deployed. They have different kind of concepts, from the line to Oxagon, which is more the industrial sector, but also urban mobility and rail is part of that. And they're fast-paced, but things take time.
But it's happening, right? I mean, that's the
Yeah,
bottom
it's
line.
happening, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
even us, we're supporting this initiatives on a national level, and this is definitely going to take place and taking place. Some are already, by the way, live. Some islands, and Sindala Island is already live, and if you want to visit it, I urge you, it's beautiful.
I will. Abdel, thank you very much for this insight from Saudi Arabia, and we stay in contact. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sebastian, for having me, and it's a pleasure talking to you.
Let's come back to Berlin, back to Mario. That was some quite interesting insights from Saudi Arabia and the Middle East. And one question is also like ETCS is considered as a key enabler for the automatic train operations, in short ATO. And based on your experience, Mario, how mature is this ecosystem today?
I think the ecosystem is maturing, but still evolving. Yeah, I think so. That's the main message I would state. Yeah, in that point in time, I mean, we've seen successful pilots and even operational use of ETCS level 2 combined with ATO. Right, so there are existing feasibilities demonstrated over various networks. Yeah, this is for sure. But however, the overall ecosystem is not yet fully there and not fully mature. So there are still challenges around standardization. I mean, especially for the interfaces between ATO and ETCS. Interoperability across different suppliers and infrastructure conditions also needs to continue refinement. Yeah. Or additionally, retrofitting existing fleets, as said before, yeah, and infrastructure remains complex and resource intensive. And that said, the momentum is clear with a strong support, and we talked about the European Union, infrastructure managers, and the whole industry. We are seeing a growing number of projects moving from a pilot to a deployment phase. But in the next 5 to 10 years, I would say we expect that the ATO over ETCS, to become far more widespread, and especially as the benefits and punctuality, energy savings, and capacity will become more tangible. So I see it highly important there.
Can you give us some examples where ATO is already in place?
Yeah, I mean, the interesting point here is that we see some of those pilots across the globe. Yeah, we see some pilots in Mexico, Australia. We saw, or we see some examples coming to Europe. We have the most prominent example in London with the Tarbes link line, and here in Germany we saw, I think it was 1.5 years ago in 2021, I assume, or 3 years almost ago, the digital S-Bahn Hamburg projects, where successfully an ATO was demonstrated over ETCS in a mixed traffic urban environment. So I think this is quite new, and where everybody learned from. And other countries such as France or Switzerland are also integrating ATO functionalities into real-world operation as part of a broader digitalization program. Yeah.
When we speak about ATO, we speak about the GOA level 2 to 4, and starting from semi-automated train operations with local drivers to the level 4, where no staff is on board to steer the train, like the metro trains in Paris or Copenhagen. Which level was the S-Bahn pilot in Hamburg? Was there a staff on the train?
It was hands off, yeah.
Okay.
It was a pilot, so there was still a local driver in it, or in the train, and it was just a pilot.
And this was a successful pilot?
That was a successful pilot, I would say, yeah.
Okay. So basically, we are on the way to running RTO.
Absolutely, yeah, and I think we need to get there. The question needs to be discussed whether we go for ATO or GOA level 4, or if we still stay with ATO GOA level 2, for instance. So I think this question can be considered or should be considered.
Can you just describe what is RTO GOA level for our audience?
Yeah, so the grade of automation stands as an acronym for GOA, as grade of automation. And between the level 1 and 4, there's a maturity, how mature such an autonomous operation is operating. And in the car industry, GOA level 4 is the ambition, for example, and still in the rail industry as well. Yeah, and if we look at the suburban lines, we see GOA level 4 operations, as you said. And for the longer distance, I assume, or I would say, we should focus first of all on GOA level 2, and then increasing it to GOA level 3 or 4 even.
And if we're moving towards to ATO GOA level 4, then the main steering of the train is done by the infrastructure manager. And many of these core functions, such as local driver training, safety processes, etc., are not anymore relevant for the railway undertaking to get at least to a great extent. And that raises the fundamental question: what is the role of RU in the world of the GOA 4 future?
Yeah, interesting question, honestly. And we are seeing currently a clear shift in the traditional roles within the rail ecosystem. Yeah. So infrastructure managers are increasingly moving beyond their conventional responsibilities of maintaining tracks and signals. Yeah, they are now taking on more strategic roles, particularly around digitization, capacity management, traffic control, and data services. Yeah, and this evolution is driven in part by the rollout of technologies like ETCS, ATO, which require tighter integration between infrastructure and operations. Yeah, and for railway undertakings, for the operators, the shift creates both opportunities and challenges from my point of view. So on the one hand, the increased involvement of the infrastructure managers in digital operations can help, for example, to create more stable and optimized conditions for the railway undertakings. And this comes along with improved punctuality, better traffic flow, or more precise planning for the railway undertakings. But on the other hand, it also means that the railway undertakings need to adapt their processes, their data systems, and even organizational structures to align with a more integrated real-time and data environment. So, and having said that, so the ecosystem is becoming more interconnected, and that calls for a rethink of how those responsibilities are shared. Yeah, and I think that traditional silos between infrastructure and operations are breaking down. Yeah, this is what we see currently, and as a result, collaboration, interoperability, joint governance models, etc., becoming increasingly important currently, and will become more important in the near future. So that means we need to rethink workflows, investing in new competencies, fostering closer collaboration across the value chain. So I think there are plenty of things which are going on, and you are absolutely right. Responsibilities will need to be shifted somehow. And To sum up, or in short, the change is already happening, and the organizations that are quickest to adapt those changes will be the ones shaping the future of rail, right? To support standardization, to design new processes, etc.
I will ask a very provocative question. So, do you think that the current, especially railway undertakings organization, are ready already or thinking in these future scenarios?
I think they are aware of
Okay.
that something needs to happen. And I think that's clear. I think traditional silos need time to rethink those existing procedures. Yeah, if we talk about the entity of charge and maintenance, so how do we deal with that if the responsibility is shifted to the infrastructure side? So how should they take over ECM responsibilities for rolling stock? Yeah, so that's quite new, and I think there are still discussions ongoing, and the question is about speed. Yeah, you are absolutely right. That's a good question, and I think it needs a lot of change management behind, and we need more of those pilots where the capabilities which are needed are demonstrated to overcome probably those kinds of thoughts or those kinds of discussions.
So basically, we probably also need then a retrofit of the organization, especially. Yeah, but in both directions, also the infrastructure manager, as you said, I mean, the whole maintenance topic would be completely new for them, at least for the rolling stock. Then for railroad, I mean, that's quite, I would say, an upheaval.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it a retrofit. I would call it an upskilling in some ways. I mean, it's like with a data and AI topic. Within the last 10 years, a lot of additional capabilities came into those organizations, and even different organizational structures learned to adapt and learn to use analytics and to use data to make better decisions. So I would more call it as an rethink or to refocus or to upskill a couple of necessary skills. Yeah.
Mario, if you would be the European Commissioner for Transport, what would be your top priorities on your agenda? For rail, of course.
Yeah, exactly. I would narrow it down only to the rail industry, as I truly believe that the commissioner has plenty of tasks beside that. But if we only focus on rail and still in this existing political environment, especially here in Europe, and if we see how things are currently are in discussions, I would call for action on 3 specific topics dedicated to the rail industry. Probably the first headline is like fast track the digital rail transition. The second topic is make rail the backbone of green mobility in Europe. And the third topic is to create a truly single European rail area. Ultimately, the goal is simple, but ambitions to make rail not just the greenest, but also the smartest and most attractive mode of transport across Europe. Yeah, so
that's basically a good vision. And by the way, the most concrete answer I have ever had in my podcast. Yeah, it's the 22nd episode now. So thank you for that. And let's coming to our last question. If we look ahead, how do you envision the railway industry in the year 2050?
Yeah, a good question. So, I mean, the instant answer is I expect and I assume that this mode of transportation will be reliable and on time. So having said that, so that's from a customer experience perspective. But for me as an industry expert, I would see that by 2050, I envision that the rail industry is the central pillar of a smart and sustainable and seamless connected mobility ecosystem. Yeah. So one that is integrated with other transportation modes, powered by real-time data and deeply embedded in the both urban and long-distance logistics chains. So, and trains will be fully digitized and largely autonomous, operating on the intelligent network managed by AI, etc. And what do I mean with that? Yeah, imagine the Apollo 13 rocket and compare those type of rocket with the SpaceX rocket. Yeah, there is a lot of differences between those rockets, and I would envision that the rail industry will do something similar in that regards. Yeah, that sensors, live data will be used and from a door-to-door multimodal travel experience for the customer experience or for the customer. And yeah, so this is what I envision for the 2050.
Thank you very much. But basically, it comes again to the question, like as Elon Musk is always like part of the discussion. So we do need like an Elon Musk to reinvent also the rail kind of. But do you see like a company or a personality who really has the ambitions to change the world or the railway world or ecosystem really to that extent that we coming to the vision of you by 2050?
Good question. Yeah, I mean, there are a couple of companies out there who came into the market in the last, I would say, 10 years and who already interrupted that market. Yeah, if you look at Eurotech, for example, who are producing IoT devices for locomotives, or if we look at Konux, yeah, there are a couple of players out there. Or even the big players like Siemens with the Railigent X. So there are platforms available. As said before, I think it's not that we need more technology. I think it's like we need to adapt and we need to use the existing technologies in a way that all players within the rail industries can benefit from it.
That's super nice closing words, Mario. Thank you very much, and for having you, and also to Abdallah from Saudi Arabia. I think it really underlines that rail is a global topic, and one of the mode of transport, which is very important all over the world. Thank you very much having you in RailUp Podcast, and yeah, welcome to the RailUp Club, Mario.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure talking to you.
The ball is in your court. What is the next step to drive change?
The next step is clear: aligned strategy, funding, and execution.
What is the contribution to drive climate change?
Together with the team of our Railway Center of Excellence, the contribution is to be a catalyst by challenging the status quo, fostering collaboration and championing innovation within your sphere of influence. Yeah, whether through leading projects, shaping strategies, or connecting the right partners, our role is to turn vision into action.
Which superhero do we need to avoid the climate disaster?
Yeah, as always, none of the superheroes can do it alone. I would group three under one umbrella: Captain's Planet for environmental wisdom, Iron Man's tech innovation, and Wonder Woman's relentless drive for justice.
What's the takeaway from this episode?
My key takeaway is that the ETCS isn't just a European story anymore. It's being successfully rolled out beyond Europe's borders in places like the Middle East, India, and Australia. It shows that even without a strict legal framework or subsidies, major investment in these technologies are happening, a real proof of concept. Together with Mario, we explored the current state of ETCS. While countries like Switzerland and Denmark are making strong progress, much of Europe still struggles with costly retrofits and slow fragmented rollout speeds. Meanwhile, other regions are moving ahead, often faster and without political pressure. Mario shared how Accenture is helping tackle innovation challenges across the rail sector stressing the growing need to retrofit not just electric but also diesel locomotives. A major stumbling block remains the lack of coordination between the countries, making seamless cross-border operations more difficult than it should be. To add a global perspective, Abdallah joined us live with fascinating insights from Saudi Arabia, where ETCS Level 2 is already widely deployed. Driven by a greenfield approach and a strong focus on safety and efficiency, Saudi Arabia is laying the groundwork for future regional rail connections through the ambitious GCC railway project. We also looked at how automated train operations is evolving alongside ETCS with a successful pilot like Hamburg's digital S-Bahn. Mario explained how automation will reshape the traditional roles of infrastructure managers and railway undertakings, a shift that calls for fresh rethinking, new structures and stronger collaboration. And that's exactly what the RailUp Podcast stands for: rethinking, challenging and shaping the future of rail. Welcome to the RailUp Club.
This podcast connects innovators and leaders worldwide to shape the future ecosystem of rail. RailUp by Sebastian Sperker.